All right, channel members, thank you for joining. And this is Mr. Bones. And let's do some more mixing today. Today we'll take a look at, give a listen to some drum and bass mixing, kick, snare, and bass guitar versus the subgroup compression. And if we have time, maybe we'll look at the difference of running effects into L&R versus the group, or we'll do that next time. Cool. Let's get into it. He keeps coming into the room to hang out with me, so I've got a little dog bed for him right here, because he's like, what are you doing in there? All right, so let's get started here. I've got some live tracks running into the console. These were recorded quite a few years ago on DA88 tapes, and I've got, you can't see them, but I've got multiple DA88 machines in various states of disrepair with their lids off there, and I've tracked that to this computer here, and I've got some wave tracks set up on the laptop. All right, so let's get started. I've got just kick and snare we're going to do, and bass guitar. And I'm going to bring up a mix here, and we'll just listen to it for a while. I'm going to take my time. And when I bring this up, you should hear the kick and snare. Let's go ahead and start that up. And I'll bring up the bass. And you should be able to hear the kick and snare. It's pretty punchy on top of the bass, with the bass sitting kind of below it. And everything's kind of nominal here. If I go into my now I've got this DCA here. This turns down all my channels. As I said in the last video, this DCA turns down all my groups. And all my channels, the volume for the channels is before the group compression. And the DCA number 8, the groups are after the group compression. So if I do this, I can push the channels up, turn the groups down, try and maintain some volume consistency by shifting them. And we can now hear the kick and snare real kind of tight and compact, and the bass has come out, right? Because they were hot before, and these levels are set on the compressors to kind of even things out. Now we'll go back the other way. And there's kind of what you normally have for live. You've got this kind of real live clubby sound. It's punchy and snare, and it's jumping, and you got, we can bring the snare and kick down. But it's just really hard to get our mix dialed. But now I'll go ahead and do the shift again. And now we're studio compact, and we've got this real nice level sound here. Let's take a look at the settings that I'm using. A lot of people are asking me about the attack and release times on the compressors that are on the group. So let's go ahead and do that and take a look. So if I go there and I look at my dynamics view, I am running the attack time on the drum bus at 0, the hold at 31.7, and the release at 226, and it's the same for the left and the right. For the bass, in what we're listening to, I'm running the dynamics, the attack at 0, the hold at 10 milliseconds, and the release at 35, and the same thing on the other one. So there's your settings. The settings that I was using on the toms are the same thing, 0, 10, and 35, 0, 10, and 35. The cymbals from that other video I did, the same thing, 0, 10, and 35. So I'm using 0 millisecond attack. I'm using very fast attack to kind of grab the whole signal. And the reason we want to use a fast attack for this subgroup compression is we're typically not using a lot of compression, and we don't want the beginning of the signal to jump through and give us these spikes and then pull back the rest. We're trying to grab the entire instrument and pull that back. So if the kick is too hot, it's basically attacking really fast. It's grabbing the entire kick drum and turning it down. We don't want the release time too long because we don't want it to still be held down when a softer note comes and get a pumping sound. And we don't want to set the hold too long. So we kind of want a short attack, hold, and release times so that as long as the signal's loud, it's turning down, and as soon as it's not loud, it comes back to us. Okay, so another thing that's cool, let's go ahead and start this, is the ability to, first of all, let's look at our subgroup. So now I'm in a lot of compression. I'll bring it back to about neutral. And everything's about 0. Is I can hit bus master here, and with bus master here, now I've got my drum, my kick and snare group, my tom group, my cymbal group, my bass groups that I can, I have the post compression stereo levels, and then here, I didn't mention last time, but I set up DCA, so I've got a DCA dedicated to nothing but kick and snare. And so this DCA will just, I've got another DCA just for the toms, another one for the bass, another one for the guitar, another one, it doesn't say it, but it's vocals, and then the 6th DCA is doing nothing, the 7th is all my channels, and the 8th is all my groups. So by putting this in this bus master mode, now I can do what I was doing with the entire mix, where I'm pushing the entire mix into compression, but I can do that just on individual instruments. So I can take like kick and snare, and I can turn up the kick and snare and bring down the kick and snare group and create a more compressed kick and snare group without messing with anything else in the mix. And I can do the same thing with the guitar, with the bass. So now I've got, it's doing exactly the same thing I did before, but I'm doing it on an instrument level. So I can pick an instrument, like let's say the kick's too jumpy, kick and snare are too jumpy, but the bass is not. So I don't have to, I'll leave the bass, maybe I want the bass dynamic. So now the bass is dynamic, and I can get the kick and snare pushed into compression and pull those back. Fun. Okay, and then the last little bit that I'll do here is, let's take a look at effects. So I'm going to put these back. Get everything kind of dialed in. So the effects, when you run the snare, let's say the snare effect, it's sending, hopefully, you want to send it post fader. So when you bring down your faders, the send to the reverb comes down with it. And when you bring up the faders, it comes up with it. Well, if you're doing subgroup compression and you're messing with this DCA where you're bringing up all the channel and down the groups, and you have your effects bust to your left and right, when you bring up all the channels and push them into compression of the groups, that return on the effects is going to left and right. It's just going to get louder and louder and louder. And it's not going to be compressed with it. So you want to take the effects that are associated with whatever instrument, like the snare drum, for example, and run it back into the same groups that the snare is run into, so that when the snare goes into compression, so does its associated reverb. All right, so let's go ahead and check out what happens if we bus our effects to the groups and do this, and then bus to the left and right and do this. So let's go ahead and check this out. So right now, that's no effects. I'm going to go ahead and bring those up. And just a reverb on the snare. It's a little deep, but that's all right. And let's go ahead and look at our DCAs here. And this is with the effects of reverb, the snare reverb bust back into the kick snare group. And as I push it more into compression, and I take it out of compression, alright, so we can hear a difference between the two. The reverb is definitely kind of more, it's very audible. When it's in compression, we can hear a lot of it, even though it's not loud. There's a lot of space for it. Now let's go ahead and put that into left and right and see what happens. So we should be able to bring that down here. Okay, so now we've taken the reverb out. Now I'm going to send it to left and right. Now we'll do the same thing. We'll bring the channels up. Now we're pushing everything into compression. And if we go the other way, and as you can hear, when we push the channels up, and the effects and the reverb is post fader, it's pushing it hotter and hotter in favor, and the reverb dominates the mix. And then we go the other way, the reverb drops out completely, whereas we had more of a consistent sound on the reverb. Cool. That should do it for today. Thank you for hanging out. I hope this is interesting. And also, I did the Soundy McSoundface shirts as requested. And I ordered some and I got mine already. That's what it looks like, sound truck. Put some super subs and some rat traps on a truck and sat there and frustrated myself for many hours with CorelDRAW and Photoshop to make this happen. All right, cool, and I will see you soon.